Shining bright lotus.
Just in case we missed it, with today's Dharma reflection titled The Monastery of Daily Life. So good to be with you all and all Dharma buddies. So what's this about? Well, it came to me because I have an idea. I have some kind of, it's not totally an idea because I did live in Japan and I did spend time around monasteries and temples. I never lived in one of them. But this idea that my practice would be really supported if I was in a monastery and I had to get up at 4 and go and sit and be quiet and then eat, have meal reflections every time at every meal except the evening meal, and then just all those things that would support me in my practice. So and I've always wanted that. Although I have lived in a spiritual community for firstly 5 years, and then there was a bit of time in the world, and then for probably another, I don't know, 4 or 5 in another spiritual community. And it wasn't a Zen monastery, but it had its similarities, and we meditated a lot and we worked hard, and it was very good, and I'm very grateful. And nevertheless, I still have had this idea of a monastery, and I don't know about any of you. Maybe some of you have lived in Zen monasteries. You can say that later, or maybe you have, or spent time. I think Mingpo has, and we've quite a lot of us has been to Daibosatz and sat in Sesshin, and so. But the fact that we don't made me think about, well, what can we do in our daily lives? What can I do? What do I do in my daily life to bring my daily life to my monastic practice? So first of all, that would be meditation. So you're all here, so we've all sat together, and so I presume you've all got a meditation practice, and maybe you have, maybe you haven't. And even though I consider that I have, there's always room for improvement. I very rarely give anybody a 10 out of 10. I always give them, if they're really good, I might give them a 9. But because there's always room for improvement, and there's always room for improvement in my sitting. I can do more sitting, or I could get up earlier, or so I experiment, and I invite you and encourage you to experiment and with your practice. So we're not even right now in this little room that I'm sitting in, the same room. Well, actually we are, I suppose we are. That the magic of Zoom. But there is something different about being actually present. I can reach over there, and beloved Ashik is there, and I can touch him if I want. I can touch his hand, and we sit together, and that every morning, and occasionally we don't, and that in itself is huge support. Because like if I were to say, well, I don't think I'm going to get up quite now, he says, well, come on, get up. So and likewise, I can do the same. And then if maybe there are times we can't, then I practice alone, and then I can practice with you. So it's like, how can we do those things? How can we bring our meditation? So the other thing is sitting, going and on sesshin, if we can, or a 3-day, or a half day, or maybe you have some buddies who like to practice. And that's another thing here. There are a small group of us. We meet once a week and we sit together, and we've done it for over 2 years. And it's great that we can do that. And I know Hosho, you sit with a group and maybe some others of you. And so I just say, this is wonderful what we do on Zoom. And when we get together, like we have done last year, I went twice. In March, some of us got together where Ekai is currently sitting right now in that house, I believe, and it was wonderful. And then we went to All Nations Gathering Centre, and it was wonderful. It was so wonderful to meet each other, and it helps our depth as a Sangha and a depth with our support for each other. So that's something I would look at. So our daily life, so monastery, our monastic practice. So that would be one, our practice, and always looking. And if you need support, so maybe I can help, or somebody else, if you have a question, or there's many of us here that I'm sure we're all available to help and support each other if you have a question or you want to get in touch. So that would be that aspect. And we have the sutra book. We all have well, if you don't, it's online and you can print it. And the sutra book is great because you can just open it. Atadipa, you are this light. So we've just did the morning service, and so how did we do the morning service? How did you do the morning service? Did you really feel into each of those phrases? Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I kind of feels like, I'll get through it, or it's a bit difficult because we're on, the connection's different because we're on computers and so on. So you can always pick it up, have it available, have it around a house somewhere, make more than one copy. So here it says, I am this light, pure selfless awareness. Oh, wow, what does that mean? I am this light. You are this light. We are this light. We need this light. We need this light right now so much in this time, these difficult times. So embody it. Be the light. Don't shy away from it. Don't wriggle out of it. I know I do. Sometimes I think, I can't do it. I can't do a Dharma talk. Or, yes, I can. Yes, you can. Yes, we can do morning service. Yes, we can sit on our cushion. Yes, we can be kind to each other and be better human beings. So that's the monastery of daily life. So what else we've done? Okay, so in a monastery you do samu, which is work. So we all work in our own way. We all work, whether we do. Some of us have families and younger children or teenagers. We have jobs. And so how can we bring our practice into our work? So being on the cushion, we say it is our meditation. So for me, how can I make it continuous? So that would be even when I start to get up, I notice, can I bring awareness? My knees are a bit stiff, or my back hurts, or so I'm getting up. And then if I'm with others, I would bow. And if I'm alone, I bow to myself for practicing. I often bow. If nobody's around, I bow. I bow to a tree, or I bow to the dog, Flash, my wonderful teacher. So I'll go back to bowing in a minute, because let's stay with the practice of how we bring ourselves in the world. So whether we're doing a job alone or if it's cooking. So in the monastery, the position of the cook, by the way, called the tenzo, is a very important position. So why can't we bring that importance, that respect for that position into our daily life when we make our breakfast or even our cup of coffee? So you can, what do we usually have oats. So making those oats we make our own muesli. So adding the fruit and stirring it up and really being with it and bringing that to our daily life. So that would be no different than being in the monastery. So, and the other thing about that, we can incorporate, like, say, if you have a difficulty with practice, daily practice, or you're new to practice. I'm working with somebody right now who really wants a meditation practice, and he finds it quite difficult. So he's going to meditate for minimum of 10 minutes every day, and maybe more, but 10 minutes for 1 week, and then we're going to look together and assess about how was it. So we start with 10 minutes every day, and then throughout the day, maybe there's a time when you can just sit down. Sit down. Don't pick up your phone. Don't pick up your phone. Just sit down. Don't switch on the computer, or just leave it. If it's on, just leave it. Walk away. Sit somewhere. Could be outside. Nature's always very good and healing. Or just sit down somewhere and just stop. And just know what you do for meditation. Just take a deep breath. And just be aware. And just come back to yourself. You can time it or not, or you can look at the clock or not, and then go about your business. So you can take little times throughout your day to do that, or or when you're at work. Like, I remember when I was a flight attendant, you don't, it reminds me, but we could do it, like, say you're busy in your family and you can't get space. So go to the toilet, go and sit in the toilet and lock the door and be there for 5 minutes. When I was a flight attendant, I used to go in the toilet sometimes, and I'd just lock the door and I'd put the lid down and I'd sit there and I'd just take a deep breath and I would meditate for a few minutes. And then I'd go out and it was ding, ding, ding. Oh, I want a coffee. I want this. Oh, when are we going to get there? And okay, well, hi. And I'd go about and do my work. So we have to be creative so we can do these things. And then it is our monastery of daily life. So I will go on to bowing. So bowing, we bowed a lot today. We do this, we bow. How wonderful is that? So that practice must have come from Japan. They bow all the time. Well, not quite all the time, but they bow a lot. It's very much part of the culture, and I love it. And so you can, if you want, and if you don't, then don't. But I'm not giving you advice. I'm trying to encourage you to find what works for you. What works for you to bring this practice to every breath that you breathe, every moment, right now. So bowing. So bowing helps us to stop and just be grateful. Like right now, I'm grateful for you being here. And I use bowing a lot. Like for example, when I stay at a friend's house and maybe I sleep over on the couch, or maybe I have a bedroom, or if I stay in a hotel, when I leave, I do my best to leave the space maybe a little bit better than I found it. And then I bow in gratitude. And I do that quite a lot. And we can bow to each other because we're familiar with it. So sometimes I'll bow in other situations, but depends on the circumstances and who I'm with, because not everybody is familiar with it. And so I might not, then I might just say wave, or I might shake hands. But even in the shaking of hands, you can bring the same spirit of gratitude and acknowledgement. So, okay, I'm going to read something. So, the How to Raise an Ox, I found this, I thought it was about continuous practice, which is gyoji. In the great way of the Buddha patriarchs, there is always supreme continuous practice, which is the way without beginning or end. Arousing the thought of enlightenment, practice, bodhi, and nirvana have not the slightest break, but are continuous practice which goes on forever. Therefore, it is neither one's own effort nor someone else's effort. It is pure, continuous practice which transcends the opposition of self and others. The merit of this continuous practice upholds oneself and others, because due to one's own effort, all worlds in the universe, all the way up to the heavenly abodes, immediately share in its benefits. Even though you may not be aware of it yourself, and others are not aware of it, that is the way it is. Therefore, because of the continuous practice of all the Buddhas and patriarchs, our own continuous practice becomes a reality, and the way of the Buddhas is opened for us. Because of our own continuous practice, the continuous practice of all the Buddhas and patriarchs and matriarchs is manifested, and the way of all the Buddhas is opened. Because of our continuous practice, there are the merits of the way which is without beginning. Because of this continuous practice, each former Buddha and patriarch and matriarch abides as a Buddha, transcends Buddhahood, is resolved as a Buddha, and is perfected as a Buddha endlessly. So, I offer that to you as a reflection, and for me it's continuous service, continuous practice. So continuous. It's not like, well, we're going to sit at 7:30 to 8:30. Well, yeah, okay, and we're going to do this, and it goes on. It goes on, and when we're sleeping, okay, and when we're sleeping, mostly we're not aware, we're asleep. But go to bed with that in mind. Go to bed in a good way, or maybe I often lately try and do something that will help me with a good sleep, like a good piece of music, or sometimes a Dharma talk. I watch a lot of Dharma talks. So that's something you can watch Dharma talks. You can, of other folk, other teachers. There's lots of them, and they're very diverse, and they're wonderful, and they can help us. And the other thing, if I go back to when we want to have support for sitting, that we have this Sangha, and sometimes we sit in person, and today we sat like this on Zoom, but maybe there's another group that will welcome you to go and sit with them sometimes. I have a connection with an English group that about over a year ago, I can't remember, I connected with them, and then I met the Roshi online, and I said, well, I'm going to go, I'm doing a priest training, and I've connected with some old Dharma buddies, and I'm connected with Shining Bright Lotus now, and he said, oh, wow, that is so wonderful, and he was so supportive, and he said, well, that's great, he said, but if you want to come sometimes, it's not quite so far to fly from Portugal to the States, and come and sit with us in the north of England, you're very welcome. And I feel welcome, and I can go there if I want to have some extra time of sitting in person. So there are other people like that, so we can reach out and we can be inclusive. That's how I see it anyway. So what was the other thing? How am I doing on? Okay. Well, a couple more things before we close. So the other thing that came to me is I used to do a lot of retreats in Los Angeles. They weren't Zen retreats, but they were retreats. And we used to do a morning service, a morning walk, not a morning, we did a morning walk. So there were two things that come to mind with that. Was on the morning walk, in that area, it's near the airport, there's a big building, a Delta Airlines corporate building with the red and blue logo, and it says Delta. And so every time we walked past, I would bow to Delta Airlines because I'm so grateful for that job. I'm so grateful for what they gave me and for what I learned, and so I'm grateful. And the other thing that I learned from those retreats was I found it in a Zen book today, and I can't find the link now, but it's called Secret Service. So that so that's, can you do one kind thing today without anybody discovering that you've done it? So and so just be aware of what that means. So for me, I'm aware that sometimes I've done something because I wanted to, and then I thought, oh, I wonder if they noticed. And I might even say, oh, did you notice that? And then I've blown it. I've blown it then. So then I have to start over because why do I need to know? And is it because I want to feel, oh, I've done so good, oh, aren't I good, and aren't I helpful? No. So, and I found it in one of my Zen books somewhere just yesterday, and it was called Secret Service. And I really like that. So we can all do secret service. That's part of our monastic practice. So our monastery of daily life. So have I covered all the things? Because I think let's see if there's anything else I want to share before we close. Okay, I think I will do one other reading. So this is from Beginner's Mind. So Shunryu Suzuki said, when I was at Eiheiji Monastery in Japan, everyone was just doing what he should do. That is all. It is the same as waking up in the morning. We have to get up. At Eiheiji Monastery, when we had to sit, we sat. When we had to bow to Buddha, we bowed to Buddha. That is all. And when we were practicing, we did not feel anything special. We did not even feel that we were leading a monastic life. For us, the monastic life was the usual life. And the people who came from the city were unusual people. And when we saw them, we felt, ooh, some unusual people have come. But once I had left Eiheiji and been away for some time, coming back was different. I heard the various sounds of practice, the bells and the monks reciting the sutra, and I had a deep feeling. There were tears flowing out of my eyes, nose and mouth. It is the people who are outside of the monastery who feel its atmosphere. Those who are practicing actually do not feel anything. I think this is true for everything. When we hear the sound of the pine trees on a windy day, perhaps the wind is just blowing, and the pine tree is just standing in the wind. That is all that they are doing. But the people who listen to the wind in the tree will write a poem or we'll feel something unusual. That is, I think, the way everything is. So, for closing, I just invite you to consider all these things. How can you live the monastery of daily life? And I think we are in the new Zen. We are in the Zen of now. We are the new Zen. And it's a new time. And we can practice being the bodhisattvas of this new time. So I encourage you to go forth into the monastery of daily life.
Shining bright lotus.